Welcome back to the Cutaway scene where the conversation stays uncut, unfiltered, and present. Listen, there is always a moment where you have to choose, okay? And I'm not saying between good and bad, but between what you want and what makes sense. And the difficult part is both can look right, but now it's not about figuring it out. It's about what you're willing to stand on. Because let's face it, once you choose one, you're letting something else go. Let's talk about it. Alright, so earlier this week we had asked y'all if you had to choose stability or passion. And honestly, this one was closer than I expected, okay? Because people love talking about passion until stability is on the line, okay? Now, suddenly, it's not about dreams anymore. It's about bills, comfort, responsibility. And that's what makes this conversation real, because both choices make sense. Hey, one gives you security, and the other one gives you possibility. And depending on where someone is in life, their answer changes. Let's get into some hot takes. Alright, so for Hot Take Wednesday, at what point does being realistic turns into settling? Because I think a lot of people blur those two together. Some people genuinely shifted priorities. Others, I feel like they gave up and just called it like amateur. Okay? And that's a hard question to have. Well, that's a hard conversation to have, I meant to say, because nobody wants to feel like they have settled. Because at the same time, every risk doesn't make sense either. So where is the line? Now, someone sent this in. I don't think people stop wanting more. I think they just get used to where they are. And honestly, that's real, because after a while, comfort starts feeling normal, even when deep down you know you wanted something else. Let's get into some hot takes. Alright, so scenario one. You've been working a stable job for years, okay? Money cool, you're comfortable. Hey, people around you think you're doing great. But every day you keep thinking about something else you actually wanted to do. Okay? Something creative, something bigger, something that actually excites you. Do you stay where life makes sense or risk messing up your comfort trying to chase it? Now, my hot take on that is I think comfort can become dangerous when it keeps you disconnected from yourself, okay? Because the scary part isn't struggling. It's waking up years later realizing you stopped wanting more. And I'm not saying everyone should quit everything overnight, but I do think people know when they're surviving versus actually living. That has been my biggest fear, really. Waiting until it's way too late and looking back like, what if? I think you should follow your dreams, but have something that can support you until your dreams can support you. Alright, scenario two. Now imagine this. You finally get an opportunity connected to something you actually care about. Okay, but taking the opportunity means starting over financially. Okay, that's less stability, less certainty, more pressure, okay? Everybody around you thinks the safer option makes more sense. Now, do you listen to the logic or bet on yourself anyway? My hot take on that is that sometimes people around you aren't trying to hold you back, okay? They're trying to protect you based on what they would do. But your life can't always be built off others' fears, okay? At some point, you gotta decide whether peace for you comes from stability our fulfillment. Okay? See, sometimes you got to be careful of projection. Okay? Sometimes we take on people's fear, okay? Because they project their fears onto you. The safe option is where you feel the happiest. Now, for me, I don't think this conversation is really about stability versus passion. I think it's about honesty. Because people know when they're forcing something. People know when they're shrinking themselves to fit a safer life. And again, there's nothing wrong with stability, okay? But I think there is a difference between choosing stability and hiding behind it. Because a lot of people don't fail from chasing what they want. They fail from never really trying. And at the end of the day, what matters more isn't going to look the same for everyone. Some people want peace. Some want purpose. Some want both. Okay? But whatever you choose, make sure it's actually your choice. Anyways, that was this week's conversation. Tap into the conversation on Instagram at the Cutaway Scene. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube so you do not miss what happens next. Anyways, that is a wrap, and this is the Cutaway Scene. Bye!